In a lot of design and artistic type classes, it's very common to keep a sketchbook or some sort of place where you're keeping development of your ideas. When a lot of people think sketchbooks, especially with artists, they might think like very refined and very impressive work, right? In sort of a small little book. And depending on the level of the artist, their sketches may be amazing, but that's not really the intent of a sketchbook. The idea of a sketchbook is to start to communicate your ideas and to develop your ideas. So they may look great, but they don't necessarily have to. It's really just about getting those ideas down, sketching out your ideas. So this book is done by a professional, has lots of impressive sketches in it, but even still, you can see that they're communicating their ideas. They're working on figuring out what they want to create, how they want to create it, and they've got notes and stuff along with that, right? So it may look impressive still, but you can see these areas where it's sketchy. You can see these areas where they've got notes, where they're talking about, do they want to do this, do they want to do that, what are the issues with that? And they're trying to figure out what exactly they want to do with it. And that's what you should be doing as well. Whether you're using a sketchbook or whether you're using some sort of digital collection, right? And not everything has to be amazing. You can see the lines here they're actually a bit rough, right? They're not amazing like you might see in some of the others. Now that was done by a professional, so let's look at some student examples. So these books, they are published, right? And so they do have maybe some better examples than maybe average, but they're still student examples. So you can see things that are cut out, things that are pasted on, notes written beside it. Sometimes they might be digital things that have been printed out, right, and then added in there. And if you're keeping a digital sketchbook or a digital portfolio instead, you can have this digital instead. Not everything has to be just physical. It depends on how you're planning on doing it, and it might also depend on the class and the teacher that you have. But this is what your sketchbook should look like. This is what a development of ideas, whether it be in a sketchbook or whether it be on a portfolio or on a website, should look like. And this is the same thing that I'll be looking for from you when it comes to showing the development of your ideas for major projects. And as you move through the year, you should be doing some of this, sketching out what are your ideas, how do you think they might work, putting little notes with them, stuff like that. Let's look at this one. So this one is a little bit more design oriented as far as like hardware and stuff like that goes. You can see this sketch here where they've broken it apart and identified the different pieces of it. Or you can see a CAD drawing where they've used a computer-aided diagramming or computer-aided drawing program. You can see other sketches here, right? So this is much more design-oriented, which you might expect to see in more of a engineering type class, right? And so even if you're not thinking like, well, I'm not going into art, there's still a place for sketching things out, developing your ideas through that. So this book shows much more of the art area, right? So we looked a little bit at some fashion design, we looked at some engineering type. This is really more of what you'd expect in a like true pure art class. And you can see here kind of how some of their ideas look and how they develop some of the different concepts and work that goes into their final pieces. So this can include cutting things out that you're using for resources. This can include notes. This can include your own sketches. So it's kind of a variety of things. It doesn't have to be all generated just by you. Some of this you can see is from other places that they've collected and shown together. You can also see experimenting with the medium, right? So how they're using those different materials. You can see here's one of the rough drafts from someone's sketchbook. And here's the final draft. You can see some of the elements that are in both, like the little diamond here, the crystal here. You can see some influence from some of the artists they may be studying, right, and how they're putting that into some of their work. So that's really the idea of the sketchbook, is you're just trying to figure out what you're doing. That can be trying to draw what might be the finished product, but a lot of times that's also sketching out your ideas, writing about your ideas, trying them in different ways, right? So that's really the idea of these sort of developmental work. So what does it actually look like kind of all together, right? So instead of looking at little parts, little pieces of other ones, let's just look at one of our previous students and kind of how theirs look. So this is a student from the IB Diploma Art program. You can see some of the different research, some of the different places they've gone, some of their ideas. Here's some pictures of their work, a sample of their work, some of their influences and inspiration, some of the things that they've been studying. Right, let's look at another one. So sketching out their ideas and what are they trying to make. So this student decided to actually make several different pieces of furniture. So they were thinking about what sort of designs they might put on the surface or on the top of a table, with some of their inspiration coming from nature and water and the ocean and those sorts of environments. You can see some different artists that were inspiring to them. Some more shells. Here's some of their ideas, some of their concepts on what might go on top. You can see those shell designs coming back in. And they actually went to a lab and actually started making it. And so to make this, she actually learned how to use a CNC machine to carve out the different designs that she wanted to create on the surface of her table. And you can see some of that here. And she actually took pictures and videos that she stored on this. Well, I mean, obviously you can print the pictures, but she's got more in here, plus actual videos. Here's some of the different parts where she was sort of developing her ideas, right, that she eventually put on the surface using the CNC machine. And she has another book which she didn't finish, but she started this one during her senior year. You can see some of the different inspiration or some of the different artists and stuff that she was studying, and some of the finished work that came out using the CNC machine. And it looks like she was probably developing her ideas to make another one, right? Here's some different studies from different art from around the world that she was also looking into. So that's really what you're aiming for when you're creating this sort of work, when you're developing your ideas, whether it be a sketchbook or on a website or on a portfolio.